So now I got this. Now the feet looks pretty good. That the face is the most important thing. You got it pretty correct. You know, the question has come up before. I mean, does it have to be all shaded perfectly? Really, you don't have to. We're going to paint over the whole thing, but at least the placement of the features, the nose, the mouth, you want to kind of get that right. And by the way, this is just a suggestion, because the reality is when you paint, you can be going, you can be correcting as you paint. But this is a safe way that I recommend. Just get the drawing right. You know, why not? Focus on that drawing. Look at those angles. Look, the foot is not even finished, but it's good enough. It's the contour of what we're trying to do, right? And why did I not shade everywhere? Because we're going to paint all that later with tones, right? Somebody asked, what's the name of the spray you just showed us? It doesn't really matter what the brand is, because I've used different ones through the years, but it's called workable fixative. This one happens to be Blue Label, but I am mixing raw sienna with a little bit of black. And on this side, I do notice certain areas that are going to be a little bit more toward the reddish side. So I'm going to try to find a little bit of like a burnt sienna color in there too. Nice color, nice color. I think it's going to work good. Use a nice kind of good sized brush. Yeah, I think that's perfect. Raw sienna and a touch of black in it. The more you kind of tease it out, you know, smoothly, then it's probably better.
Do you have Italian varnish on your canvas?
Yes, I did an Italian varnish. Again, to not confuse anybody, it's Italian varnish oil painting medium, and a little just to thin it out a little bit. I put a little bit of the you know, that solvent. So here we go. Looks like a mess right now. However, we'll get it to look good later. Almost. All right, so stage one is about finished on mine. It's a mess, looks like a mess. But we'll get it to look good. We're gonna now get nice accents and stuff later, you know. So let me help some of you all with the drawing that feel that you can use a little help. And I'll get back to this in a few moments, okay? So, but basically, before I do that, this is what we're going to be doing next. Watch, this is going to be a lot of fun. Let me see some umber. I mean, burnt umber. Burnt umber. Make a little bit of ultramarine. And I'm really looking at my monochrome approach there. This is all nice Rembrandt-y shadows right here, where that column is. Going all the way down here. I'm going to define all this stuff here.
Excuse me, Ed. What color is that?
Well, I did a mixture of burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine blue, just to give it a little bit more darkness in the darker areas like that. And I'm going to hit this corner, look, the cave, my cave area. I'm sorry, that was burnt umber. Burnt umber with a little ultramarine.
Okay.
Let's see, look at this. That's exactly why we don't need to shade this with pencil, right? Because we're going to be putting tones here. And already look this all the way down to where the cave is beginning. This is the cave. Right now, I'm adding, I'm not really using the solvent anymore. I'm using a little bit more like substantial paints on the darks.
Okay.
So a little bit more of the more pure paint because, and the reason is because there is already an amount of medium on my board, right? Because of that initial pass, right? In other words, when I put that initial tone, there was already medium there, so I don't want to put more medium. See what I mean? It's enough to serve as a bed so that I can just, start working over it. Basically, there is 3 ways of applying paint in oil, and that is transparent, which is glazes. There is opaque, and then there's somewhere in between, and that's called the scumbling. So we're gonna hit all those areas, and then you can tell by looking at the painting which one of those areas really requires what application. And that's what the monochrome is really good for us. It allows us to explore all those darks and where they are. And when you have those dark values, then the lights really pop out. Great, Okay, I better stop because now we're getting into the details. Okay, I'll keep working on this later. Okay. Now, when we get to Jeremiah himself, I'm gonna use a smaller brush because I want to get these details really, really nicely. The shoulder here, and look at how much fun this is. See how I'm hitting these darks here? I have a way of thinking that I adopted from one of my teachers, Nelson Shanks. He said, when you are going to start with color, go with what's the most obvious color. So let's go over that together. What is the most obvious? It's kind of like in every type of, like when you're drawing, like if you're doing the bark, you want to start with the obvious lines, the big shapes, right? So the same way when it gets to values, you want to start with the obvious values of dark, midtone, and light. And now the same thing, when you get to color, you want to go with the most obvious colors. So imagine we have this monochrome done, okay? Now we want to do color. So what is like the most clear color that separates from everything else? In my opinion, it's that garment. It's like, because everything else is warm and now this is cool, right? So why not try to see the right relationship between this and this? So I'm going to work on this garment, and then eventually I'm probably going to get into the skin tones. But actually, this is kind of my order of approaching this. I'm going to go with this kind of obvious color, this cool garment, and then some of that cool is kind of picked up here also. So I might throw some of that here while I'm at it. And then I am going to try to add this color that looks kind of greenish, right? I think with those 3 tones, it's going to already start seeing the right relationship of colors. Colors relate to one another. They can't be out in left field unrelated. They have to relate. And then I think once I get that done, I'm going to have fun with that head, and I'm going to start doing some skin tones. That might be next week. All right. So we'll talk about skin tones, and then we're going to start, balancing it out. Maybe it makes, remember, let's ask a question here for the audience, for the group. What are the 3 characteristics of color? Anybody know? At least give me one. 3 characteristics of color. Hue. So what is meant by hue? Hue is the actual color. So for example, this is, going back to this, hue. So the hue is like a blue, right? Okay, next one.
Chroma?
Value.
Value is next. So how light, for example, look at the shoulder here. That's a darker value than this one. So hue and value. And the last one was already said, chroma, or that's also saturation. So how intense. Surprisingly, look, if I do this, according to this digital reading, there's not even any blue there. That surprised me. It's just basically black and white. So it's actually a gray. It looks blue right next to that warmth.
Oh.
So it looks blue. But see how colors relate? If I would have gone in and just say, okay, let me mix some blue, and I would have gone like this, it would have been a horrible idea. Look what happened. If I would have gone like that, look, I'm going to do just for fun. Look at that. What's wrong with that color?
That's too intense.
Too saturated. It's
Nice cartoon.
Yeah, it's a cartoon color. Even that's kind of cartoony. But this, hold on. That's better, right? So you see how, look at that. Better. Look. Matches. And that is basically, a gray. That's basically a gray. So that hopefully that's a good lesson about how do we approach this, And then like this one up here. You sample this. It's kind of a bluish gray. I mean, like a kind of just a gray, So if sometimes I'll be honest with you, I don't trust the computer that much. I got to trust my eyes more than the computer. However, it does tell you, why don't you try it? And if you need to shift it, you shift it. You shift it a little bit more blue or whatever you want to do. But it does show you that. So those are the three characteristics of color. So let's see how it looks, okay? And by the way, I don't know if y'all noticed, but I used to have that picture here on the side of my my canvas. I took it down. You know why? Because it was too dark. It was good for me for the drawing, but not for the painting. So right now I am going to rely on my digital reading. That to me, I trust this more like the original. I like the balance. It's not it's not too dark, not too light, and so forth. Okay, friends, so enough talking. I got one hour to paint. So is a question, is this thick paint or thin paint?
It looks thicker.
How can you tell? Because of the strokes, and you can see underneath there's like a lighter tone, so that means it was kind of fluid and thick, and some of this is showing through in certain areas. Look at that. So there's a lot of opacity here. Very interesting. So I don't want, if I go too thin, it's going to look wimpy. Just like a flat house paint. I don't want just a flat house paint look. Starting the same with the foot. Look at this. You see the thick paint where you can see, you know, a darker tone underneath here. And then there's definite bulk of paint right here. Look at that.
Wow.
Thick paint. Look at this. You really can see it here. You see? Really cool stuff, huh? So I'm using titanium white by Utrecht. I like it's a nice thickness to it. So I got my own little powder here. I'm gonna throw some in. Calcium carbonate. Talked about that. We'll put it up here. Watch this. See?
Plastic.
So there it is. Kind of gooey already.
Yeah.
And that's a nice consistency. I think that's good.
And that's the white with the calcium carbonate?
Yes, but it's not that because if you do that just like that, it just becomes super thick. But you want a little bit of gooiness to it so that if you are lifting it like this, let me show you all. Okay, look at the palette. You see this?
Yeah.
See that? Richard Schmidt says that choose your brushes the way you would choose weapons for battle. Okay, I think I got a nice size brush. This is a number 2 filbert. Now I'm going to mix what seemed to be, according to the computer. What was it? What was the mixture for that garment? Black and white, basically. Oil that out. It's amazing how okay, so I've got this right. Wow, that looks blue. And there's no blue here. It's just gray. Gray, black and white. You know, actually that's what's showing up on this wheel anyway. It's a little bit on the warm. So I could always throw a little bit of a orange, like, you know, a sienna color like you all were saying. So cool, huh? But well, no, I could always adjust that later. So since I oiled it out, everything just going very smooth. And Sargent would say, look for the middle tone. So even though we're doing a Rembrandt, it's just good practical advice. If you start finding it right in the middle tone areas, then you can easily judge the lights and the darks. And if some of it shows through, it's okay. You know, that's part of the beauty of an underpainting anyways. Some of it shows through. It's amazing that there is no blue in this. I did another painting some couple of years ago, a replica. I don't know if some of you saw it. It's on my website of an Arab jeweler. And I stood right in front of it in the Met. And interestingly, it was so neutral looking. And that's what gave it that kind of really cool, refined look. Very neutral. Very grayish. That blue was almost black and white also. That looks super intense. In fact, it's bothering me. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of raw sienna and throw it in there. I'm going to add that to the palette. I'm pretty convinced I'm not going to even touch that ultramarine now, after all. You know? I'm going to throw a little bit of that into the mix. So I just threw in a little bit of that. And it's already helping. So now it's shifting it back to the warmth, right? Okay, so look at that. I'm so happy I threw in a little bit of raw sienna into this, because now it's a little bit more in harmony again, you know? But I'm getting too much into the middle tones. I need to go in and put some darks and lights. But it's like I said, here's a nice comparison. I don't know, I've mentioned to you in the past, but think of a pianist. Where does a pianist sit before playing the piano? Where does he sit? He sits in the middle, right? Because that way he can reach his low notes and his high notes with ease. You know, just extending his hand to the left and to the right. He doesn't sit all the way to, you know, the left edge or the right edge of the piano. So the same way with tones, start with the middle, find the middle area, you know. If you really want it thicker in certain areas, what would you guys do? If you happen to have the calcium carbonate, why don't you just dip into it once in a while, right? Get a little bit of that powder in there. They say that Rembrandt, he grinded his own paints, which means he had like naturally a texture that was in his paint. It's kind of interesting. So he had the right level of. It's cool. Look, I'm even looking at the strokes right now. Right, in the lighter areas, there is usually more texture. Look what I'm doing, friends. I'm putting some diagonal strokes because that's what I see there. And you know what, friends? If for some reason it still looks too bright as far as the chroma is concerned, what can we do to adjust it? A glaze. You can always do a glaze later, right? Okay, I'm going to hit some darks here. So this is black, white, and again, raw sienna. That seems to be working. Okay, again.
Is there any specific black you're using, Ed?
Usually, I think ivory black. So this one, look at this. I'm going into this area. So look how nice the underpainting is guiding me. I hope you all have been able to work on your painting some, and I want to emphasize drawing is very important. At any stage, one of the nice things about oil painting is that really at any stage you can be working on the drawing. I just thought that it would be good to concentrate on that drawing from the very beginning. And that way, if you can get it right or close to right, then that will kind of be a good guide for you to develop this work of art nicely. But the reality is that if you double check what you're doing compared to the reference material there, the reference photo, you can do a grid, you can do an overlay digitally, you can always keep working on that drawing. And when I speak of drawing, I think the most important part is probably the face, the head. But in the meantime, we can plug away. So I've worked on the garments some, and it even surprised me that it's just gray, which is black and white, and a little bit of, I actually had to tone it down a little bit by adding more warmth to it. And so others like Lindy made an interesting observation that maybe there's some rosy undertones there as well. So yeah, that's true. However, in my opinion, one of the best way we can really nail this as far as color is concerned is by putting the surrounding colors, because color relates. So you can't really nail one particular thing and say this is exactly like it. until you put the surrounding colors. And then you can balance things out. So I think my goal today is going to be about three things I'd like to show you in the next couple of hours. One, I'm pretty happy with the garment right now at the moment, but I want to show you all how to glaze. For example, I put some highlights, white highlights, but they're not really white. They're actually goldish. So I think it would be nice to demonstrate how you can go with a glaze and just tone this down now, transparent, and make it gold. Those little highlights to make them look like gold speckles. So it's very simple. And this we can always get deeper and deeper with deeper, with glazes. So that's one thing I think would be nice to show you. Another thing is that background is very warm. But I want to look at the surrounding colors from the reference and really get it to the right level of color. In other words, remember the three properties of color? Hue, value, and saturation, or chroma. So because there's a decent underpainting, the value is definitely there. The hue and saturation, I'm not sure. So I need to get on that and really see. And basically you're balancing between warm and cool, warm and cool. Intense or not too intense, which is chroma or not so much chroma. And so I'll be trying to figure that out. And then I'm gonna try to spend some time on that head, skin tones. Hopefully I'll have time to start on some of those skin tones today. And then if I can get this going, then it's gonna look pretty cool. It's gonna start looking pretty nice already. And you know what, in my approach to painting, I think it's nice to start with the more, let me see, the things that need attention to first, to get the obvious things right first, and then go for the subtle things later. So instead of getting caught up in subtleties, I like going for that. So that's why from after the monochrome was done, that's why I went with the garment, because it was the most obvious change of color that I felt was needed. And then and this is kind of working out that I kind of maybe started just subtlety. I kind of did that that rug a little bit accidentally. I kind of got carried away and started to sneak in some color, but really my focus probably should have been this. And now I'm going to go to the face, because that's the most obvious thing that needs to be changed. And then I can be kind of balancing with the other colors in the background. And now, as far as this Bible is concerned and these things, that's going to be fun, but it's not right now my priority, because it's very subtle, and it's just going to require graying it down and doing some other things later. I haven't even touched this area of the city yet, but I think I'm going to do that today, because what I have is enough. Hold on. There's enough there that I can start. Establishing that. So what I'm going to do is some of these cools that are here, I'm going to start putting them in the sky area. And then after that, I'm going to start kind of refining everything. I still got to work on this basin area and so forth. So at that point, then I start putting it together. I don't think it's kind of realistic to finish something 100% finished in any one area, because you have to relate things to other things. So you may have thought that garment was the right color, but then once you start working in other areas, you realize, oh, maybe it's too cool. I need to warm it down a little bit. Or the skin. Like right now, I think my skin tone's okay, but I think there's a little bit more contrast in the actual painting between the head and the background. So I might have to go back and lighten up the skin, and then maybe darken a little bit of the background, kind of snap it up a little bit. So my point is, I like to go about 90% finished everywhere eventually. And then toward the end, I'm gonna start fine tuning everything and balancing details, colors, values, everything. Okay, I'm gonna start on some of the surrounding colors, which are here, and see if right now that this is still the underpainting, but it's a little too gold for what I think should be. So there are certain things here that I like better still, but I'm not too far off. Right here, I'm gonna start balancing those colors a little bit better here, and here, and here. And then I'm gonna go to the face, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun here in this head today. I'll see if I can show you how, even though I did highlights here, white highlights, there's actually some gold. You see this nice gold sparkles? I painted them white because I plan to put golds over this later. Look at that. Like I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna turn into a little gold, just with the little glazes. So transparent, glaze is transparent, right? Transparent yellow, basically, I'm gonna put over that. I'm not gonna worry about this. I'm gonna just sit down probably the entire day working on this later. I don't think I'm ready for that. So friends, I went to IKEA the other day, my wife, and I found this little bottle that's nice. It's a nice little bottle that I can just rinse my brushes in. Really nice. And I got this one, the same one for my turpenoid. So I'm happy with that little addition. So my brushes have been sitting in the turpenoid for a little bit because I had a very busy weekend. So it's okay, now I can just rinse it in the lavender brush cleaner. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of a touch of stand oil in that background, stand oil, because it, like I said, this is thick like honey, and I kind of like that viscosity, so that I could add it to just be able to tap the paint that I'm gonna scumble on top. I'm gonna add it to the Venetian varnish medium. Okay, so here we go. Look at that, it's restoring the brilliancy because it was dry. You see what's happening? So it's bringing out colors again just by oiling out. And now it shows me what the real colors are. Remember I said that in oils, it tends to get flat. I don't have to do the whole thing because I know that it's all darker up there. It's a lot darker than it appears on the camera. Here's a little point. See this gray palette I have here? So this is a mid-tone gray. The fact that I can put a gray over it like this and notice it a little darker, that's good because it helps me with my values. Even my palette that I have, the glass palette right in front of my easel, it has a little bit of a grayish base that will help me to to judge my values. It's probably not going to be just black and white, but with some burnt umber or something like that. So I'm going to put that here too. And actually, I'm not just putting the color in, I'm actually trying to see what strokes these strokes of Rembrandt are here. Okay. Maybe even raw sienna still should be there. That's the nice thing about these replica projects, because you're not sure what he did until you start trying it. Okay, so I see that's way too cool. And I'm trying to be careful not to eliminate those interesting reddish undertones that are there that you can see right through. So remember the saying, every stroke is a drawing stroke. We never forget about drawing, even when you're painting. So right now, for example, there's this little corner area. I know it's too hard to see it. Let me get a little closer with this. I'm trying to capture these little darker, warm areas. I'm going to put a little bit of burnt sienna too as a possible color to dip into as needed. When you oil out like this, it's so nice to control the paint. And I'm applying the paint very thinly. Just kind of lightly going over, staining these areas because I think the modeling is there. It just needs shifting colors. I'm trying to get those colors better balanced here with the warm and cool level. Better. I noticed that in this shadow area behind his head, there's like a reddish glow right around the shadow of his head, which is very interesting. So again, warm and cool, warm and cool. In this area of the cave, I noticed that there is some scumbling going on where it's cooler. Try to get that down. So you want to shift between warm and cool, which would be black would be more cool. Warms would be more like burnt umber or even burnt sienna or raw sienna. Those could be kind of going in and out in your mixtures of darkness here. And there's a color that is called Rose Doré, which is very nice. It's a transparent pink, pinkish color. Rose Doré. And I really like it. I really like how it works with, here it is. Rose, it's all squirrel. Rose Doré, D-O-R-E. That's nice if you need to go with pinkish areas, which I happen to see in this high-res picture. Maybe put a little bit of it. Little kind of like, looks like a candy gum. Yeah, Rose Doré. And of all the colors out there, it's the one that holds its pinkish tones when you add light to it more than any other color. So that's interesting, I think. Put it here on the palette so you can see it too. It's kind of like a transparent magenta. So let's see how that looks in these areas that I find a little bit more pink. It's like a nice little. I think I'm going to take advantage of the computer to see what it recommends. And then based on what I know about mixing colors, let me show you all what I'm going to do. Okay, so we're going to work on that head now. So skin tones, it could be a variety of ways, but definitely I would say maybe to see what's on the screen there, it's kind of an orangey color, right? I think I'm gonna try Naples yellow. By the way, this is a rose doré. It's a nice color if you want some pinks. Winsor Newton.
What would be another equivalent to that?
Well, it would probably be like alizarin crimson, but applied very, very lightly.
Okay.
I guess rose doré is more like a specialized color, you know. It's not an absolute necessary color, but it's nice to have it, in my opinion. Actually, I'm using a little bit of just Naples yellow and cadmium scarlet and white, and see how that goes, just to start. Try that again. That's pretty bright. Not bad though. I mean, I can cool it down some. Okay, it's not bad. Okay, I'm going to work on these areas. It's like a transition area of the skin, where it's the shadow going into light gradually. You see how that goes? If I do this. Right now, it's kind of getting the colors in there. But later on, I'm going to have to get those strokes in there really nice. You know, the right level of opacity. Oh yeah, it's coming along, coming along. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to get as close as possible. I'm going to get that forehead here. And I'm applying those strokes kind of at a diagonal with a kind of a small brush. And here, I notice Rembrandt has a little bit more intensity of color in this area, right there. Right in the brows here. Oh yeah, it's coming along. So basically what we're doing is, when you want to keep it simple, is we're just adding reds to we already have golds there, right? And because of the underpainting. But now we're doing little reddish tones into it, which is important for the skin tones. Okay, so I'm going to go into the little rosy areas of his cheek, of Jeremiah's cheek, and work on that. And even his nose. Look at that, just with a little bit of thinness, a very thin paint. It's already having a skin tone show up, right? Because the underpainting is there.
Ed, what brush are you using right now?
Just a small brush like this. It's this one is a number 2 cat's tongue, I think, or it's kind of a little bit of a flat, but with a pointiness to it.
Okay, thanks.
Is that also known as a filbert?
Yeah. Well, cat's tongue is kind of on its own,
Okay.
but it's similar to a filbert. But I could already see that in this head, I'm going to be probably needing the very small, tiny brushes too. I'm going to try to make this area glow a little bit more. So I have to add white and Naples yellow and all that. More light. I gotta squint my eyes to get that form to go good, you know. Squint. This whole area is important transition right there. So if you notice, I've already added a highlight in the middle. So that highlight is important to me because that's the highest point. So they've been established. I might tone it down later, but right now I can see that that is the highest bright. Yeah, it's actually too bright still, but I'll work with that. I think I'm going to pull out some of my very small brushes now. Right now, this is pretty much pure Naples yellow straight. It needs a little bit of white though. And I'm going with diagonal strokes like Rembrandt did. Now it's basically going from orangey mid-tones to yellowish highlights, like goldish highlights. Which means that in the highest highlights, I mean, the highest lighter is kind of Naples yellow and white. Hey. Now, remember we talked about edges. So in the hair area of the skin, since it's kind of balding, there's areas where that skin tone shows through. So now is the time to put it in. Little transparent strokes like that. Okay, so I'm going to use transparent orange, which is very similar to anything transparent that is an orange or a gold or something like that would work. Like Indian yellow, transparent orange. I happen to have that one. There's anyway, it should be very very transparent because there's oil paints that you can buy transparent and some opaque. So here is a transparent little tiny little glaze. For glazing, it's a nice idea to use sable brushes. And so let me get that Venetian medium. Okay, so here is an example of a glaze. So what's this area? So this area has white on it, right? But I'm going to glaze down and watch what happens. So that was an example of a glaze. And now I can go, once that's dry, take a wipe some off and it's still on it. Nice, right? And as it gets into these areas, towards the corner, a little bit more here. Right up here, I'm going to put some more. Watch. This is a nice one that is going to turn nice and gold. Whole area and this too. So glazing, beautiful technique from the old masters. You can use it even in this modern time. Look at that, glaze, glaze. Look at this edge. It's going to make that little edge sparkle with gold just by.
So Ed, you didn't dilute it with anything, you just used it straight?
Well, with a medium, remember? Remember I said that you should do it with a Venetian varnish, I mean, medium. So yeah. Because the medium helps it to dry fast anyway, see?
Okay.
There are a few of Rembrandt's highlights that almost look like he left them straight white, So maybe I'll be selective, but a lot of them are toned down to a gold, like here. It's very nice, beautiful.
What was your base colors for some of your details on the red garment there? Like before you put the glaze on?
You mean right here?
Yeah, well down there.
I think that was basically burnt sienna and
White.
a bit of black, a little bit of maybe a touch of white, Naples yellow, kind of play around with them. I don't remember right now. Okay, now this is fun. This little passage right here. If you get a regular yellow like cadmium yellow, that's opaque. So you need to purchase a transparent yellow. Well, those are unique colors, and they're part of my painting supply list. So once you got that, just go straight. You don't mix it with anything, but you use a medium, and that medium is a glazing medium. It could be liquid. It could be the same one that I've been using throughout, which has been the Venetian Italian varnish oil painting medium. It could really be any medium. any medium. It could be cobalt, which is I like this one, copal painting medium. It could be anyone. It could even be linseed oil if you want. But you need a medium to make it go, So I got so far, so it's beginning to take a little bit more of the shape. I know it's kind of subtle, but typically in a painting, you do want to take your time as it starts getting toward the end to do fine tuning, So this is what I see. And I'm going to keep working on those skin tones today. Throughout the day, I'm going to be looking at how Rembrandt would, now that I got to kind of the general skin tones, now I'm going to go back here and really study. I'm going to really study what's happening here, even with the creases, and then see if I can keep that little, creases and details. I might even need to do the X-Acto knife here and there, and get that real nice textures that he had in the forehead. And I'm going to try to control the values so that this is not too dark, because this is very pale back. I don't want to put dark eyes because that's not what I see. If you want to make this look like this particular Rembrandt painting, then we got to respect the values and drawing and tones and colors and textures, everything just like what we're looking at.
And here is the final painting.